Welcome to the overview of the VSR2 Wallboard HF. This is going to be a general overview without too much depth, just to get you a feel of the wallboards and of the graphical user interface. So what we're looking at the moment is a team or agent type display. It has a single queue on the left side with associated parameters, and on the right hand side here in the main section is the agent information, and you have the agents that are currently logged in and some parameters on the left here, and then they cross-reference with regard to parameters and particular agents. So we can see Holly Steve's agent state is ready. We can see Rosemary has handled 12 calls today, and we have no abandoned calls for Amanda Nickel. And on the sales side, we can see that we have an average talk time of 1:08 and longest current time in queue of 1 second. Please be aware that all the data is demo only, so you won't be seeing the real-time updates. The top of the display has a logo, has the day, date and time, and your logo would go here. And then we have numerous buttons along the top here which allow us to navigate through the system from the wallboard itself. We have the GUI home button here. We have a license indicator there, which when the support license is running out will bring that to your attention. We have a reports button, takes you to the reports part of the GUI. We can switch the sound on and off. And then we have users, teams and groups here. Again, within the GUI, these will all take you to parts of the GUI. Then we have thresholds, messenger, parameters, and then we have library information. Now we can take this wallboard and add it to the library, quite simply give it a name and then save it, or we can access other wallboards within the library. We can choose to delete, we can rename, and we can send people the URL for a particular wallboard so that they can bring it up onto their screen if they wish. The other type of wallboard that we can create is a multiple queue wallboard rather than a single queue with associated agents. What you see here is 3 queues, the technical support and invoicing queues, associated parameters for the queues, and we have a total queue which shows all other displayed wallboards as if they were one, which is great for departments, for rooms, for buildings, etc. The cells here again are cross-referenced, so we can see agents logged in 5 for support, 9 for invoicing, and you'll see that we have color coding. The color coding is the threshold, so the bright red is where a threshold has been breached. For instance, here the longest time in queue, possibly that's currently set for 1 minute, so as it's breached that, that's gone bright red. We also have the capability for showing a build-up of pressure, and you'll see the light red and the darker red here, which are both lighter than the full red, and this is showing that we're having a build-up of pressure, allowing you to see before a threshold is breached when issues are arising. And you'll also notice the green one here. You can set the positive threshold so that it gives an affirmation of a high performance in whatever area that you're seeing that. So for instance here the longest time in queue is very, very low here, and that's obviously commendable for the technical queue. Along the bottom we have a messenger that's currently running, and again we have the navigation buttons along the top. If we press on the home button, this will take us to the home section of the graphical user interface, and this is the main setup page. This is where we create the structure of our wallboard. If you look on the right here, this is very similar to what we were looking at there. This is an enhanced, which is a multi-queue wallboard. This is just a representation. So for instance here we see the top section where it says contact center wallboard. This is the header section. If I click that, you'll see that that vanishes, and that's simply giving you an idea of what you're creating within the structure here. We also have a wallboard user guide, which if we click that will bring a PDF guide up that you can either print or just read off of your computer. So having a look along here, we can see that we can choose enhanced agent and team type displays, depending on whether you want to see a multiple queue or a particular queue or team. And we can choose to switch the header on and off. We can give the wallboard that we're creating a name. Should we wish to send a message to a particular wallboard, this is where that comes in. If we have the header set, we can put a display heading in there. We can change the font size here up or down on the core information that's shown. If we are showing an agent or team type display and we have agents on the right here, we can set a scroll time so that if we have too many agents, that will scroll between sets of agents so that you can see the information for all of them. We have a threshold breach messenger. The thresholds were the red sections in the cells, and when they are breached, we can switch on for a breach messenger, which will show over the top here, will appear over the top of the very top section with a scrolling message as to what has been breached. We also have a threshold audio alert, which will give an audible sound in addition to the red cell colouring. We then have a threshold, breach counter and breach timer. In addition to the information you see here, we can show additional information along the right hand side of each cell, and these include a breach timer and a breach counter, so that not only can you see the condition now, but you can see how many times today the thresholds have been breached in that cell and for how long. And that will show for each of the cells, so it gives you an idea of how good or bad the performance has been, not just how it is right this second. We also have shadowing, which we can switch on or off, and this shows in the bottom right of each of the cells. And what that is yesterday's figure exactly 24 hours ago. Now these update in line with the time in the same way that these do. These are real-time updates on where we were exactly 1 day ago. And we also have the messenger. Again, this will show here if we switch it on, and obviously we removed it to switch it off, and that runs along the base of the screen. And if we have an agent type display, we can switch the agent sidebar on. It'll tell us which agents are in our system but logged out currently. Now from here, once we've created the structure of the display we want, we can now either press next or press parameters, and it'll take us through to the parameters section of the GUI. Now on the left hand side we see the queue parameters. So on the left hand side of the wallboard, this is where we select what we want to see and in what order. So we can just add or delete as we see fit. And on the right hand side we have the same. We have agent parameters, which will show, so we can have the time at state, the agent state, how many calls have been presented and how many have been handled, etc. So we can add those in, and then we choose which queue to show. Currently we're showing the customer concern queue. You'll notice this checkbox here. If I check that, it gives me the opportunity to change the display name on the display. So this is the customer concern queue, but we're actually naming it technical, and that is how it will show on the display. And the same for over here where we have the queue parameters. If I click that, I can actually change those. So for instance, longest time in queue, I can simply, for whatever reason, I can just change that to longest in queue, and that's how it will show on the display. And then from there we can either create our display, or we can now move on to the threshold section of the GUI. Now this is where we actually set our thresholds. So we have essentially three sections here. On the left we have the thresholds for the queues, on the right for the agents, and then we have a slide bar. So if we look at the left hand side here, we have 24 hourly zones within the wallboard for the queue thresholds. And the reason for this is because the pressures on your contact center go up and down across the day. So if I set the maximum number of calls in queue at 9 AM as 20, it's very unlikely that at 2:30 PM that's going to be what you would consider an acceptable threshold value. So you can set them to go up and down through the day. On the right hand side, the agent thresholds are set on a daily basis, and you simply just add in what you feel. So longest talk time, so we'll say 60 seconds. And then I just save that. The system will update, and it is now locked in at 60 seconds. And along the bottom, the slide bar, the red section here is the threshold value. The 100% is the threshold value. And so if I've set my number of calls in queue at 10, when it goes over 10, the background will go this color. But the warning system works like this. I can set this at 90%, set this at say 70%. Now we've got our calls in queue set for 10. Now if it goes over 7, this is when the background will go a very light red. So I can now see the build up. If it goes over 9, it will go a darker red, and then over 10 will go a full red. Now I can obviously set this to what I feel to be the most appropriate values. So I'll set that. For me, if it goes 50% of my threshold value, I want it to go this, and 70% there. And down here for the positive affirmation, if we're at 20% of my threshold value, or if we're below that, I want it to go green, and then any other time it'll just be standard background color. Now I can either create my display from here, or I can now go up to my messenger section. It's asking me, do I want to save those slider values? Yes, I'll do that. So now I go to my messenger section, and here I just simply input my message here. I can set an end time for this, so we can see it's now 12:52. I might set my end time to quarter past 1, that'll do. No, I demand it's 1:30. Okay, there we go, 1:30. And I send my message, so I can, let's have a look, CEO of major customer visiting. And let's put that in for 2 p.m. Now I want to send that to all wallboards. I want everybody to know that somebody's in. So I will send that message, and that message will run until 13:30. So don't click that. That message will run until 13:30, and that will show on all the wallboards. So that's now the message that's showing. Again, I can create the display, or let's have a look at the additional sections that we have here. We have groups, teams, and users. Now the group section of the wallboard is simply where we can create groups of queues. So for instance, you might have a sales north queue, you might have a sales south queue, and you might want to put those together and show them on your display. And so what we would do is we would take, let's pretend that's at sales south, that's at sales north, and we want to call that our sales group, and we save that, and that's going to save into the system. And then over here on the left we will see that we now have a sales, there we go, sales group. It's got those two in there, but for some reason we now have a sales west as well, so we need to now edit that. So we've highlighted that, we press edit, and we can add that in and save that, etc., and it'll do the same again. Or we decide we no longer need that, and we can again highlight, and we'll just delete that, and now that will be deleted out of the system. And there you go, a couple of seconds, and that's now gone. The teams is the same, except teams is essentially made up of agents rather than queues. So now we can create our team display. We create a team with agents, and then that will show on our wallboard. Users is quite simply a way of having users only able to view particular queues in the system rather than all the queues that are available. This might be important with a department head, etc. And reports on the top right is the reporting that we can create on the threshold breaches, etc. And we can do that with graphs, and we can create that into PDF, etc. For you to distribute. And we'll have more videos on each of these, giving you a little bit more of an in-depth view. Hope you've enjoyed our overview, and thank you very much.